The final shape is only a week away at this point, and the hype is as real as ever. Bungie have shown some pretty interesting things these past few weeks, from trailers and mini documentaries to blog posts and teasers. Things overall are finally shaping up to a DLC that looks worthy of capstoning a decade-long journey. Needless to say, everyone is expecting quite a big expansion here, so naturally you might want to prepare. I'd like to showcase some of what I'm doing to prepare and what you might consider doing before the final shape launches on that fateful Tuesday, June 4th. I'm never one who's big on preparing for an expansion. In fact, I actually advise against hoarding any bounties, which is typically the go-to when it comes to preparing for a DLC. I find it's much more fun and rewarding to simply go through at your own pace without feeling like you need to rush through anything to get to the end. If you're going for World's First or anything like that with a new raid, then yeah, you probably should, but realistically, some other big name will claim that title as they almost always do. Okay, so now that I've tiptoed around the topic of this discussion, let's just get right into it. What does a 10-year Destiny player suggest for preparing? First and foremost, any items that are leaving that you still want, you should get. This mostly boils down to collecting any seasonal weapons or doing any seasonal activities. We've seen old seasonal weapons and exotics be moved to other sources for acquisition before, mainly being in the exotic mission rotator, the gunsmith, and Xur. These are decent ways to get a hold of these weapons, but definitely not ideal. Ideal would be right now, when you can go to the helm and pick up any that you want. Now, I don't think we have as many heavy hitters this year as we have had in previous years, but there's still a few notable exceptions. Starting off, and in no particular order, Perpetualis from Season of Defiance. This is a pretty solid strand auto rifle, and it's a good alternative to Rufus's Fury from Root of Nightmares. From Season of the Deep, we have Until Its Return. This is a pretty good shotgun, and you can get it with some fun perks to make it shoot really fast, or to just be a decent all-around shotgun. Also note that the Season of the Reckoning weapons are not craftable, meaning that you'll have to score any rolls that you want randomly rather than crafting it. This also means that these weapons will be extra annoying to get once they've been moved elsewhere. I wouldn't say any of these are a must-have, but if you want one, get it now. From Season of the Witch, the Eremite is the only weapon that I find myself coming back to. It's a really solid fusion rifle, and while I don't use it as much as the other fusion from Season of the Wish, it's still a very good fusion and shouldn't be overlooked. Also here in Season of the Witch are more non-craftable weapons. Most of these are as underwhelming as the Reckoning weapons, but if you didn't get a chance to get Multi-Mach with Kinetic Tremors, there's a Showrunner in this Red War Engram. It's also a lightweight SMG and can also get Kinetic Tremors. Season of the Wish contains the most impressive arsenal, with Super Cluster being a solid slug shotgun, Scatter Signal being an extremely good fusion rifle, Scalar Potential quickly becoming my favorite PvP weapon, Doom Petitioner stealing the seat among linear fusion royalty, Adorative being a good heal clip incandescent weapon, and Subjunctive being a great Volt Shot primary. Unlike some of the other seasons, every weapon you see here can be crafted, so as long as you collect those patterns, you can make the exact roll you want. Out of all these here from Season of the Wish, Scatter Signal and Scalar Potential are probably my favorite. I use these two quite often, and they're great weapons that are a ton of fun to use. Outside of seasonal weapons, there's not a ton that I would suggest anyone to really grind for, but there are a couple. Obviously, any of the Brave weapons you want would be great, but those aren't exactly leaving, so if you miss them, you can get them later. You won't be able to get Super Black or the limited edition versions of these weapons, but outside of having a couple of extra perk choices, there's no functional benefit to the limited editions over the normal ones. The one weapon I would highly recommend, as in you need to get this weapon, is Indebted Kindness. This little pocket rocket is insanely good and is universally helpful in any activity, with the exception of maybe PvP. If you don't get any other weapon, get this one. You get this little thing from the Warlord's Ruin dungeon on Earth. If you don't have the dungeon key, I wouldn't necessarily buy it just for this, as we'll likely see more of this type of weapon soon. But if you do have it, get this thing. It's not leaving when the final shape launches, but it's definitely worth having now. Whew, that was a lot of weapon talk, but there's still more gear to discuss. Armor. If you need legendary armor with good stats, you can simply get them at the helm with the seasonal armor. Doesn't matter which season, simply unlock the ability to focus it, which is very easy. For the current season, Season of the Wish, it's just a matter of collecting the whole set once, then just focus it. Before you do though, make sure you have an armor mod on your Ghost, which allows you to focus for a specific stat when you collect armor. There's a bit of magic to it, but long story short, just focus for one of the lower 3 stats, that being Discipline, Intellect, or Strength. Personally, I find Discipline to be the most universally helpful across all characters and builds, but you do you. Now as you focus armor, just simply look for the stats that you want. Most of the time that includes some amount of resilience, regardless of the character, but you can play around with it and find what stats you like. When you focus here, you'll mostly get armor above 60 total stat, which is a good number to shoot for. Generally, anything above 60 is pretty good. Outside of gear, materials are great to stock up on, specifically Ascendant Shards and Alloys. You can get these through Grandmasters, the Coil, Legend Onslaught, or if you're not up to those, remember you can trade up your materials through Rahul the Cryptarch at the tower. They're a bit expensive if you don't have a lot of them to burn, but hey, if you need them, you need them, right? If you need more general materials like enhancement cores or glimmer, look towards Legend Lost Sectors or public events respectively. Keep in mind that you don't need to be solo to get the materials out of the Lost Sectors, only for the exotics. So if you and a buddy need materials but not exotics, feel free to power through a few of those together. If you take your Destiny fashion seriously, like I do, you might consider finishing up any Ada bounties you have left. You can do 10 of these per character, per season, and they award you with Synthweave, which you can use to unlock ornaments for your armor. Finally, for any of you that still have not ditched those legendary shards, make sure to spend those. I still haven't spent mine, and I'm not about to lose 7 years of collecting these things. It really comes down to 2 things to invest in with your shards, and both of them are a painfully slow process. Go to Hawthorne at the tower for raid banners, or go to the moon and invest in phantasmal fragments with Eris. Raid banners are, well, raid banners, but phantasmal fragments can be exchanged for glimmer with Rahul. You can also buy a bunch of ships or sparrows out of the collections and stick them in your vault, as they dismantle for a decent amount of glimmer, but that's an even slower process and clogs up your vault quickly. And that's about it. Like I said, I'm not big into prepping bounties for expansions, as it kind of ruins some of the excitement of unlocking things piece by piece. Plus, you want to savor the expansion. You don't want to burn through the whole thing in the first week. Regardless, it goes without saying that if there's loot that you want that's leaving, get it. At the same time though, don't stress too much if you don't get it. There's always new and exciting loot just around the corner, so don't let the fear of missing out ruin your fun. Until next time everyone, happy grinding.